Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hi friends, welcome to a double duty edition of a weekly wrap up. Last Saturday I was at a book signing with my friend. It was wonderful, it was beautiful. I have a vlog up for my patrons right now if you want to know more about it, but that means we have 2 weeks worth of books to talk about and a total of 18. So if you're one of the people who likes the longer videos, I mean, I'm sure you can tell by the runtime, this one's gonna be a chunker. I'm absolutely positive. We're also in the middle of the Mafia Romance Readathon, so I do have a couple of those at the very end to talk about that I have finished. But also, it is also Mother's Day when you're seeing this, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who watch this, to all the mothers in your life. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and why not treat yourself or have someone in your life treat yourself, because I do have 30% off on the Etsy shop this weekend. There's no code needed, but it is 30% off of everything, including my computer sleeves, the giant sleeves, the trinket trays, the zipper pouches, everything is. So please, please, please check that out and get yourself some goodies, okay? All right, we also have some channel members to welcome, which is just absolutely wonderful. Channel members get early access to videos, as well as if you're at the Fated Friend level, you get access to a monthly individual live show, not individual, a small group live show that just has my Fated Friends there. That is something that I've been doing, you know, this whole, like, I think it's been almost 3 or 4 years that I've been doing that, and it's been wonderful. So we have Fernanda M to welcome, Bella J, and Trixie R to welcome to the channel membership. So thank you so much. It means so much that you would support me there. Every little bit helps. It absolutely does. And then we have a whopping 5 new patrons to welcome, which y'all just warm my heart so much. Now, I do have trial subscriptions for the Patreon. They get you a week free, so you can kind of test everything out and see if you like it. You get access to some of my special reviews, and some people choose to stick around with me. So we have Dawn D, Sammy D, Nick Mac, Charissa B, and Jennifer S to welcome. So thank you all so much. It just warms my heart to have all of you join. It really does help the channel. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing. There is always some turnover that happens every month, people who are ready to move on. I do also, I'll share this here, I do have 1 position available for the next Fun Favorites box. That box will be going out in, let me see, it'll be June, July. That one will go out in August. So if you want to claim that spot, go for it. And that spot that's currently open is US, but there is going to be an international spot opening up later this month. So make sure you're following my Patreon and keep an eye on it. If you are one of my international fans and would like to join, there are only 3 spots available, and there has never been an opening for an international one since I started that box. This will be the first time. So keep an eye out. All right, without further ado, because as I said, we got a crap ton to get through, let us dive into the books. And right off the bat, we're starting out with a sketchy one. We're starting out with one that I have a bit of a rant for, though I'm not going to rant too long because, like I said, I got a lot to get through. But I gave this author named Kate Rivenhall a try. She is a taboo author, and taboo in the real sense. Like, there is the I word, the familial relations, as it were, that is in this one. Okay, so please be aware of that, know that. And this one is called The Parolee. And this is about, as it sounds, there is a man who's getting out of prison, and his sister, he went to prison for killing their father, who was apparently an abusive asshole. So yeah, we have that. And yeah, we have him getting out of jail, and he's ready to claim his little sister. And he sure likes to call her sister constantly, and she calls him brother in every other sentence. Now, this book was only 100 and 40 pages or so, and I think he called her sister on every single one. So they really wanted to remind us of what their relation was, which I gotta tell you, I wasn't gonna forget because I was reading a taboo novel, so I know that. And then also, I couldn't tell if this was supposed to be comical, because based on the cover and based on the dialogue, this felt very comical to me, though it definitely wasn't. I mean, he was murdering anyone who would get in their way of him being able to have his sister, and he was forcing his sister quite a few times, and then there were some times where she was happy to have it. So I don't know what was going on with this one. Now, I tried Kate Rivenhall because someone had actually recommended The Ritual by her, and she was actually banned off of Amazon, which I gotta tell you, I mean, you know, banning from Amazon is a whole conversation that I think they get a little too trigger happy with. But, you know, knowing the dark romance authors that I do, if you are out and loud and proud about the fact that there is incest in your book, that is going to get it banned. That is one of the hard and fast rules that there is no wiggle room for on Amazon for you to have full-blooded siblings together. There just isn't. And, you know, I gotta be honest, that's one of the ones that, like, you know, if Amazon's gonna ban something, I'm like, well, what are the lines that they ban, right? We don't want them to worry about other people's kinks. And I still don't shame anyone if you want to read it. Like, I read it and I wasn't reading it to hate read it. That's not the purpose of reading it. I enjoy some taboo stuff. I've read some incest before that I found deeply moving and very powerful, okay? But the way this one was written, I didn't care for. However, you know, the author's Instagram, they were like, I can't believe I was banned. And I was like, honey, you loud and proud in the description said that it was incest. Amazon's going to catch that. You know, like there is, you know, a certain series by Pam Godwin that she has to be extremely careful how she words things within the book to not even hint that there is any in there, even though that story does have that happening in it, because Amazon would ban her like that if they knew what the book was about, right? And if it was clear what was happening. But to just in the description straight up say that it's a brother and a sister, I'm sorry, that one's going to do it. Like, you needed to be a little more clever or make them, you know, a little less that's why so many people write the stepbrother ones instead, right? Anyway, this isn't me wagging my finger at the author. She can write whatever she wants. Just know that Amazon isn't going to be supportive of that if you are loud and proud about what it is. However, let me get to the point. You can buy these on Eden Books. I think you can also get them from the author's website. I don't know if she has them at hers, but I'll have a link down below. I'm not going to gatekeep from you. I'll show you where you can go buy it. And of course, when you get off of Eden Books, more percentage of it goes to the author directly anyway, so it's a win-win. I love Eden Books. It's where a lot of taboo books reside. And it's a great place to get your ebooks from. So no shame in it. I just found nothing joyful about this book. Nothing for me to really like. The characters were flat besides calling each other brother and sister and humping like rabbits, okay? And not using any protection. So there we go. So I gave this one a 2-star. Mostly because I finished it, and then it did have lots of spice. There was impact play, there was lots of dubious consent, there was non-con, and there was the incest was there. So there we are. All right, on to something a little bit happier here. I read Wild River by Laura Pavlov. So this was starting with a second book in a series, I believe, but the audiobook arc was available with Valentine PR, and I wanted to know what the Laura Pavlov was all about. I hadn't read one from her yet, and as you know, I've really been trying to do more audio arcs, and I've been loving doing that, and Valentine PR has some of those. So this one was read by Aiden Snow and Desiree Ketchum. And this one was a small town romance, enemies to lovers, forced proximity. The heroine is trying to be a lawyer, I believe, and she's back in town because her father has had a medical incident, and she's actually taking care of his bar until he will be back. Now, oh no, she's not the lawyer. I'm sorry, she's a psychologist. The hero is a lawyer. That's what it is. And he is actually a lawyer for her dad and is also friends with her dad. So yeah, it is a dad's best friend. It's also a bit of an age gap one. But yeah, his name is River. Her name is Ruby. And there's this enemies thing going on. Now, Ruby, when she's back in town, it isn't just her dad that she's trying to help. But there is also her mother and her brothers who definitely suck the life out of her. And she just doesn't, you know, want to have to take care of them too much, but she also loves them. And she also feels a bit bad that she was able to get out of the small town and like they weren't. She is being offered a position to work at this one college where she did her like, I don't know what it's called, but she did her undergrad there or student. I don't know what she did. But that would mean, you know, leaving the small town. So yeah, anywho, this one was perfectly serviceable, perfectly fine. It had a pretty typical third act conflict, though, that we could have seen from a mile away. A hero with, you know, being afraid of being hurt and all that jazz. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. And I mean, it was still a good time, and I will be reading more of Laura Pavlov for sure. I enjoyed that. I will get more audiobooks as they become available. So that rounded out my April books, and then we started on May, which we have a whole bunch of. So let us go. I reread The Queen of All That Lives by Laura Thalassa. This I was annotating for one of my patrons. I annotated the entire bind-up of this. I still felt about the same way about it I did the first time. I don't really love this couple. Particularly the heroine drives me up a wall. She bangs her head against that wall with the same arguments against why she shouldn't be with this hero who's a villain the whole time, except she still likes to fuck him and she still likes being called his wife secretly, but she still brings up the same like reasons why she can't be with him over and over instead of fucking doing something about it. I'm sorry. I know I'm throwing shade, but the person that I annotated this for, she knows how I felt, and it was still fun to reread it because she had actually sent me her book, and so I got to see her thoughts while I was reading it, and it did soften me a little bit to see the things that she loved about it. But I warned her before I read it. I was like, I don't love this, so just be prepared that I'm gonna annotate it in an honest way. So it was good to revisit it. I'm going to be reading another Laura Thalassa this month, so maybe it was good that I temper myself again and remember how her stories go for me. Okay, so I gave that one 3.5 stars, a 2 on the spice scale, and it is pretty intense. I know a lot of people love that book. So then let me set down my computer because I read King of Sloth, and yes, I have 2 copies to show here. Isn't this beautiful? So I was lucky enough to get a here it is, this one. I was lucky enough to get a physical ARC from Bloom for this. Thank you so much, Bloom. You are amazing. I feel very loved by you getting some really wonderful ARCs this month. Actually 3 are all for this month. They had so many books coming out. Here's a lovely picture here. So this is book 4 in the Kings of Greed, and then I pre-order all of these books because I do love the Amazon copies. Or the Barnes & Noble copies. It is hard to tell, but this one has blue foiling. The name and like the her name are in blue foil, and it's just stunning. It's beautiful. Whereas like the originals all have like the gold cover, but the blue spine, and this one has the blue this. So anyway, this one is book 4. This one is about Javier and Sloan. Javier is a rich man's son, basically, who's just been kind of sloughing off in life. Of course, he does have some tragic past. He lost his mother, and he kind of blames himself for his mother's death, and the father blames him a little bit for it too, but you'll discover that as you read it. Sloan runs a PR company. She is actually from a rich family as well, but she has been disowned from them, which again, you'll find out more details as you read it. But she has been tasked with keeping Javier's image good. And then very early in this book, like it happens very soon, his father actually dies. And instead of just leaving everything to Javier or cutting Javier off and leaving it to his other family members, because he does have lots of other greedy family members who would love to get their teeth into his money, the father actually leaves a will that says that 6 months from now, Javier is going to be evaluated by a panel of a few people who will decide if he is successfully a CEO of a company. Now, the loophole ends up being it doesn't have to be the family company. He just needs to successfully be a CEO of a company. So he decides to take that loophole, and with the help of Sloan, he is going to try to start a business, which again, I won't spoil it because I thought it was a really cool business that he's going to start. And what was cool about it is that it brought in a lot of cameos. So we pretty much see cameos cameos from everyone in this series, as well as we at least hear the name of almost every character from the Twisted series too. We hear about Alex, we hear about Christian, we even hear about how things are going for Queen Bridget and her new bundle of joy. So there was so many cameos in this one. It was making me so happy. So I really enjoyed this. I love this series. I really, really do. Now, in terms of if we must be so crude as to rank them, this wasn't my favorite in the series. I do still think King of Greed, closely followed by King of Wrath, are my favorites. And then it would be King of Pride, and then I would probably put this one. Now, I know I'm putting it at last place. However, I still gave this one a 5-star, mostly because it was an arc. It was like a 4.5 rounded up to a 5. I loved the slow burn in this one. I loved how things happened with their relationship. I know I didn't talk about too much of the relationship. I was giving you more of the plot, but they actually do something very interesting for what brings these two together. This is a reverse Grumpy Sunshine as well. It's a bit of a, you know, Javier is seen as kind of like a fuck boy, billionaire boy, and she is, you know, this tough, hardworking businesswoman, but I really like how they came together, how they supported each other, and I just think Ana Huang writes really beautiful romances. I love this. So one other thing I'll say is something that was cool at the end of this is we find out that, so the next book that she's putting out is actually one of her spin-off series. She's going to be beginning that. And so that is going to be, I don't know if the whole series will be sports romance actually, but the first one is going to be called Striker. And we meet that character in here. His name is Asher Donovan, and this one's going to be a steamy sports romance, and it's a soccer star and the woman who turns his world upside down. So Asher in this book is actually one of Sloane's clients, being a hockey star, and she's helping with his image and PR and everything. And so we get introduced to that. We also get introduced to who our King of Envy is going to be, and I won't spoil that for you. So there was lots of stuff being done in this book. So that's probably why I still enjoyed it so much, is even though, like, I still think that, like I said, King of Greed is probably my favorite, I still really enjoyed this one, and I liked where it went and everything. So yeah, really liked that one. Next up, finally, Brutal Ambition came out. So this one was supposed to come out the last couple days of April, but Amazon was being the butt that we know they can be. Sorry, stuff is falling over here. And it took them like 3 days to finally post this one, okay? Maybe it was 2 days or something like that. It took a couple days for it to get live. So that's why I didn't squeeze it into April. But this is actually a Coastal Elite spinoff, but don't think that it's short by any means. This was a hefty chunk, all right? This one was still over 500 pages because that's what San Mariano does. So yes, this one was a Coastal Elite spinoff. This is about Killian Walsh, and then Bryn is the name of the heroine. And so what's cool about this one though is if you've read the Coastal Elites, if you haven't read the Coastal Elites or you weren't interested, you could still read this because this one does stand alone, and I'll tell you how it connects to the Coastal Elites, of course. But you could still read this as a standalone if you want to, or if you're behind in some of the other books, that's fine. You can start with this one. Characters from the Coastal Elite show up in here because this one is about a secret society at the school that they're going to. So this school that they go to, let me just double check. There's a little map here. Yeah. So Dare is a freshman at this school. So Dare and his woman, is it Aubrey? Dare and Aubrey? Now I forget. It's been a while. I should know, but I believe it's those two. They are freshmen at this college. Then we have Sylvan, who is the character from Sophie Surrender, and Killian are seniors at this school. Okay. So that is kind of how like Dare is going into the school, and those men are going to be graduating. So if you've read Sophie's Surrender, or it's now just called Surrender, that book and this book start the same night. They start at a Halloween party that is being thrown at someone's house. And Sylvan, we know, has his little adventure with Sophie where he is dressed as a Viking and he goes a little wild that night. And Killian happens to be at this party as well. and he has heard that there's something going to go down with one of these wannabe secret societies. So he's a part of a secret society that is like the shit. It is the secret society of this school. They run the school. They have high-powered men everywhere across the country, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. He has heard there's something that's going to go down. Now, this thing that's going to go down happens to be a virgin rape and sacrifice, okay? By this, I said this wannabe society. And this girl, Bryn, has been the virgin sacrifice that was lured in. So she actually gets lured in by this other tool who has kind of asked her to this party as a date, but really it's because he's discovered she's a virgin and they need a virgin sacrifice. So literally she gets tricked in there, brought down into the cellar as like, yeah, let's go play pool and hang out. And there are a bunch of men down there who are going to tie her to a table, rape her, and kill her. Literally in the basement while there's a party going on upstairs. Like, are we fucking serious? Are we? Well, Killian thinks this is ridiculous as well, because here's the thing. Does he really care about Bryn? No. Does he care that someone might get murdered? No. But what he does care about is this wannabe society ruining it for everybody else, right? Okay, we see where his priorities are. So he rescues her from this, and you know, there's a whole sequence, there's a whole cool rescue sequence that he does, and then she escapes. But the thing is, all these men who are going to do this to her, they know who she is, and she knows who most of them are, and she's not allowed to go to the police because Killian's like, you can't bring this to the police. But also she's not fully safe either, because you know, they might want to stop her from telling. So she is basically forced by Killian to stay with him in his home, in his like penthouse place, wherever he's at, and including he takes her cat and brings it over and is going to keep her there and make sure she stays safe. Now, to begin with, he's not doing this so much because he likes her, but he does think she's really beautiful. So he thinks, you know, maybe you owe me for saving you. I'll be a lot nicer to you than those guys were, but I think you owe me something. So we see some of that Sam Mariano twisted mister coming out here. So anyway, the rest of this book is a lot of like secret society stuff, and there's a lot of behind the scene things we learn. Again, we see peeks at Sylvan, we see Dare, we're getting these more pieces clicking in. Now, the purpose of this book, Sam said, is that she knew that some of her men were in this secret society. And in fact, you will see a nod to some other characters from other worlds that we know. So it's clear that they might be aware of this society as well, which wouldn't be a surprise because there's lots of high-powered men throughout her world, right? Sorry, this book is heavy. It's hurting my wrist. And so we see those peaks, but she knew that the story with Dare, like the secret society isn't going to be the main focus of the continued books that have those characters in it, and she really wanted to explore a secret society. So that's why she took the time to write this one now, because she'd said later on I won't feel like going back to this. So that's what she said. The next book coming out will be the first book of Hannah's, as we've talked about. That is still the plan. But yeah, this one. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars, which I know is still a good rating. It's definitely a 4.5 on the spice scale. Very kinky. Lots of like dubcon stuff, even some non-con. I just, you know, Killian was definitely not the meanest or crudest of men. He definitely does get very forceful, but he's also very reasonable to a certain extent. He also is one of the men that has some of the least amount of power of any we had, and I don't mean to say that he's weak, but he's actually someone who's been like, he's from a poor family and he's made himself wealthy by his connections with this group. And so he doesn't have his independent wealth the way some of them do, which means his strings can be pulled by other people in some aspects. Now, he's still devious and conniving in a lot of ways. I by no means am calling him a nice guy, but in a lot of aspects, he is a bit tamer than some of the others. So just want to put that out there. I still enjoyed this. I still gobbled it up in one sitting because that's what I do with Sam Mariano books. So I'm by no means calling it a slouch or anything. I'm just saying that I do have favorites, and this one isn't a favorite, even if I still liked it a lot. All right, then we have one I can talk about kind of quickly here. I read The Last Resort by R.S. Gray. I had an audio ARC or ALC as well as an arc of this one. And this is currently I think like a standalone release from R.S. Gray, although I did see what looks to be another book coming from, this one was with Amazon Publishing. It looks to be that there's going to be another one with them that is also like a holiday one, so maybe it will be connected. But anyway, this one is about, this one was narrated by Lucy Christian and Wyeth Watts. And this one is about Paige and Cole. They both work on a tropical island on a resort. So he's like the assistant manager of the place, and she does the excursion events. And they both have crushes on each other, but he wasn't going to make a move on her when he was her assistant director or whatever. So he's pushed her away, and she's taken that as like, I hate him now for doing it. But really, it's just a way to flirt with him. So these two are flirty flirts. Then there is a semi-disaster that hits this island. There's a tropical storm that comes through that forces all of the employees to move into the main resort hotel where it's safer, and they have to double up rooms. So through some conniving of some coworkers, Cole and Paige end up stuck in the same hotel room for a couple of days, and things boil over. So this was a pretty short read. I enjoyed myself. It was fun. It was a nice, like, light-hearted one to fit in between some of the darker ones I'd read. So I gave this 4 stars. It was a 2 on the spice scale. There was nothing overly anxious or crazy. So maybe if you're going on vacation or you have a flight where you could read a book real quick, this one could be fun for you. Okay, then I had an arc of Ruthless Savage by Lillian Harris, and I'm happy to say this book is doing wonderful for her. It's the start of a new series. It's one that I've seen a lot of people in the Mafia Romance Readathon reading, and I love it. I am on the arc team for Lillian, so I got an arc of this one. This is the first book in the Savage Kings, which spins off from her Italian mafia. This one is the Irish, and we've already seen some of that. So we have our heroine who, pardon me, I think her name is Iru, is how it's said. And then we have Devlin. Now, Iru was the one who was supposed to marry Gio in the previous series, but her older sister ended up already being in love with Gio. So that's what happened. Now her father is still trying to marry her off, and so he pairs her with this other dude. Now, this guy she gets paired with is, I think, part of the Italians as well, and he's not great. Okay, he's not great. And then we have Devlin, who is almost pretty much twice Iro's age, and he's been her bodyguard before, and he is so into her. Now, he is actually a traitor to a different mafia group that he left a long time ago and joined this crew instead. He's been a faithful bodyguard and protector for this family for all this time. But he has recently started to have feelings for Iru. Of course, not until she was of age, because that's how it is, of course, all appropriateness. But he started having feelings for her, and she has feelings for him, but she's now supposed to marry someone else. But is he really going to let her marry someone else? No, he's not. She decides that the only way to prevent herself from marrying this man, since Devlin won't claim her, which he thinks he's not good enough for her, so he won't claim her. She thinks the only way to stop this marriage to this asshole she's engaged to is to lose her virginity. So a friend of hers tells her about this sex club that she could go to, and she could lose her virginity anonymously. Well, of course, Devlin follows her there, and he puts on a mask as well, and he ends up being the one who touches her and all these things. Of course, she has no idea that it's him. No, would never know. And yeah, so I didn't love this one, I'll be honest. It's not my favorite from her. This was way too long. It also was ridiculous with some of the reveals at the end, which I don't want to spoil because some people might think they're exciting or novel, but to me, there was a point in the book where I was like, what the fuck is her dad doing? Because I like her dad. Now, he's made some tough decisions for his kids before, but he is an Irish mafia boss. Like, he has a lot going on, and there are some crazy revelations that he had in previous books that we've read, and I like him. And so his choice to marry off another one of his daughters to this absolute asshole, I was like, what's going on? Now, there's a reason behind it, apparently, but it was stupid. So the whole reason there was tension or drama at all was this reason. And I was like, why do we put everybody through this? Why do we put everybody through this? So I don't know. I did not love this one, but I've seen a lot of other people have. A lot of other people are giving this one 5 stars, and it is doing great. This book is doing great, and I love Lillian Harris, so please read it. I will still be continuing this series. I still love what she has going on. Just for me, this one was not it. This wasn't it. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. I rounded up to a 4 for my reviews. It was a 3.5 on the spice scale. There was some BDSM involved. There's some spanking and some dominance and all that jazz. So there we go. Next up, I had another... Well, I have a few in a row here. So I had another ALC. This one was For Betting Against the Scoundrel by Mariah Stone. This one is book 4 in the Dukes and Secrets. Now, I didn't love book 3, but book 4, I had a bit of a better time with. So this one is about Spencer and Joanna. So Spencer, if you've been following along with the series, he was actually the man who was press ganged into the Navy, forced to fight in the war. He was a duke and he lost his title because he was assumed dead. So his brother became the duke. Now, he can't have his title back even though he's back, because the way that it works... and this is true. This isn't just historical. Like if you lose your title, give it up, you abdicate, or you've just been presumed dead, you can't retroactively take that back because it's already changed the lines of succession in a way, right? It has now moved it over. So he can't be the duke again. In a lot of ways, he doesn't even think he would want to be a duke again, but he still, of course, wants revenge for all the years that he lost and also all the horrors that he saw at war. There's other men who are press ganged into this. Like, why is this happening to us? Why are we being forced into this? And so he's determined to ruin the man who did this to him. Like, that is his whole plan. And so we know who this man is. We've known for a little while who it is. And so he's going to go about trying to tear this guy down. And then we have Joanna, who happens to be the niece of this man that we want to tear down. And she also wants to take this guy down because he has kept her brother's inheritance from him, which therefore is hurting both her brother, her sister, and her. And she wants to do something about that, so she's planning to do some undercover work. So when both Spencer and Joanna are going undercover at a masquerade ball, who should they run into but each other? And so they end up playing some games with each other and kind of helping each other, kind of getting in each other's way while working on taking down her uncle. But of course, they want to do it in different ways because he just wants to ruin the man and make sure he gets arrested and hanged. And she, is nervous about that because if he gets in trouble, that could also taint her whole family too, which would, go against what she's trying to do anyway. So they might be at odds with that. But I gave this one 4 stars. It was very cute. I also liked seeing how everyone in the family had turned out. And I think there's going to be a spin-off series that's about some other characters that we got introduced to in this one. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it was a 2 on the spice scale, narrated by the lovely Shane East and Justine Eyre, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Okay, then I was lucky enough to get an ALC of Chasing Wild by Kristen Proby, which is out now. This was one of my most anticipated books for May, so I was very excited to get this from Must Love Audio. So this one was narrated by Stella Hunter and Connor Craze, and this was book 2 in the wilds of Montana. This one is about Summer and Chase Wild. So he is a cowboy cop. That is what he's called. That is what he's branded as, and he definitely was. So yes, he's a police officer in this small town. But he is still a cowboy at heart, and he's actually working on building his own home on the family land because that's just very important to him. He wants his piece of land there, and he's found this beautiful place to have it. In fact, I think I'll be showing the cover right now, this lake where he wants to have as his view, the lake on the property. But we also have the wedding of Aaron and Remy happening in the background, and our heroine is a floral designer. She runs Paula's Posies, which was actually her aunt's shop, and now she runs it, and she's going to be doing the flowers for this wedding. And she's actually friends with Chase. Now, she has lived in this area for 5 years now. She has a family that lives in the big cities. Her father's a politician, but she's always just loved being around her aunt and being in this small town. This is the Wilds of Montana. I forgot the name of the town that it's called right now. But so she moved here 5 years ago, and she's been running this shop and loving it. Now, her family doesn't love that she's given up being a political tool for them, but that's what she loves to do. And her and Chase, they've kind of been circling each other for a while. She's actually, I believe, turned him down for a date previously because she wasn't ready to date anyone then. She had been in kind of a bad relationship before with men who all just wanted to use her to get closer to her parents and stuff. And so she just wasn't ready. But it's been a few years now. They're very close friends. And so Chase is ready to try again. And I labeled this one as everybody in the town knows you're meant to be together. We're just waiting for you to figure it out type of thing. But this was a genuine friends to lovers. It was very sweet. And I enjoyed it a lot. It did kind of go wild at the end, right? Like we know the thing with this one, there's a suspense element that gets set up from the beginning. This is actually how they really start acting. There's someone kind of stalking her home. And so she calls, and Chase is the one who comes out. He makes sure that cameras are installed. He makes sure that she's safe. And it really kind of gives him a reason to be checking in on her, but also it gets him checking in on her and everything, which is good. So that's happening. But then on top of that, there's that suspense element that's just sitting in the background. And then near the end, it just completely like blew up and went way over the top. And to me, this one just didn't make as much sense even as like the first one. The stalking in the first one with who that heroine was and like who her parents were and everything, I understood the stalking. And in this one, I don't really know why it went that way, but that's okay. I only took off half a star for it because I wasn't there for the suspense element anyway. So when it got over the top, I was just like, okay, moving along type of thing, right? I can do that. So yeah, I gave this one 4.5 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. There's also a very cute canine companion in this one. She has a sweet pup, and I love scenes with that where like Chase actually really loves her dog, and he will sometimes want to spend the day with her dog while he's like working on the house or doing stuff. And like, come on. Who doesn't love a big, strong man who loves this cute little, I think she's a pug or like a mixed mutt, but she has like flat-faced dog. So just so cute was this rescue pup. So I love it. Okay, next up, I read Eag Maniac by V. Keelan. This one was for a patron as well, and I hadn't read a V. Keelan in ages. I really hadn't. So I was intrigued to start this one. So this one is about a lawyer and a psychiatrist. Funny enough, I read one of those last month, which was crazy, the Laura Pavlov. But this one has a really funny beginning when Emery is moving into a new office space. She is a marriage counselor, actually, and he's a divorce lawyer, so there's that. But he comes home from a vacation. I think he was in Hawaii or whatever, and his office was getting like redone. And I can't remember who it was who did this, but somebody actually tricked her into saying that she could rent this office, and they offered her this crazy deal. So she's actually moving her stuff into this office, and then he shows up and is like, what are you doing here? And she's like, you're breaking in. And she's like, gonna call the police. And he's like, go ahead, like I own this, so I don't know what you're doing. And she realizes she's been conned. So our hero, he feels bad for her because he's like, that sucks. So he's like, how about I'll let you stay in this space until you can find another one, which eventually leads to they share the space. They end up sharing, like there's room for her to have an office, and she actually shares like secretarial duties for him because he doesn't have a secretary or a paralegal right now because they're still gone. And so she like helps out with that, and they become really good friends, and I liked that. So there's definitely sexual tension. He's definitely poking at her a lot, so yeah, there's that going on. And then there's another layer to this where we discover that he's actually a single dad. So there was these flashbacks to him with his like ex-wife, because we know that this ex-wife really burned him. He was already a divorce attorney, but like he thought that, he had a chance with this woman or whatever. And we find out that he has a son. And through these flashbacks, we find out how he's ended up where he is and everything that's going on. And that is when this book really won me over. Because I gotta say, it was rough in a few spots. It was funny. It was charming. There's a lot of things I did like. And then there were some things that just like made me roll my eyes. And I was like, oh, what's going on? But when stuff kicked in with him being a dad and we like see the lengths he's willing to go to and how passionate he's about his son, I was like, dude, you're a top tier dude. I like it a lot. So I ended up having a good time with this, and it made me curious about some more of V. Keelan's like backlist. I know my friend Shauna really loves a lot of her stuff, and you know, there's a lot of team ups with Penelope Ward. I've read a few of those ones, so definitely made me interested to read some more. So I definitely will. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Whew. All right, moving along. Next up, we still have a lot of books to talk about, so here we go. Next up, we had Not So Truly Yours by Julia Wolf. One of my most anticipated books of the year. Y'all know how head over heels I was for Elliot and Kit, and this one is Miles and Daisy, okay? So I won't go into too much detail about this one here because I know I will talk about it ad nauseum once it's out. And I really liked this book. I really did. So we get Miles, who, if you don't remember, don't know, he actually co-owns a business with Saoirse, who is the heroine from the second book, and they run this like business, like this startup business company where, I mean, it's a startup for them, but they help startups. They help small businesses get their footing. They help them with like marketing. They help them with all of this. And so Miles, that's what he does. He comes up with the ideas. He helps pump these people up. That's what he does. And one of these things he's doing is he's actually helping a friend from high school get his like bar, like really promoted and everything. And so though Miles is quite a few months sober, he actually works at the bar a couple nights to help Nick out. And while he's doing that, he meets Daisy, who Daisy does a little bit of this freelance thing where she is making cupcakes, and this bar is kind of like a speakeasy vibe. So she puts on this cute outfit and she sells her cupcakes and charcuterie cups to the people at the bar, because who doesn't want some munchies and some cupcakes? And Miles eats some of her cupcakes and is obsessed with them. And so they kind of have like a tough interaction. This is a black cat and golden retriever hero. It's a reverse Grumpy Sunshine. She's a tiny, full of spice and vinegar lady, and he's this like just jovial, for the most part, you know, seen as a playboy billionaire type. But he's very intrigued by her. And then she ends up meeting, I can't remember who it is, someone connected with Saoirse and Miles, who, when they like taste her cupcakes, they're like, you should do this. You should really do these events and stuff. And so she gets connected with Saoirse. So she meets with Saoirse, and then she finds out that Miles is her partner. And so she is going to be starting a like event, like catering. There we go. That's the word, catering, that does like cupcakes and charcuterie boards for events. And Miles and Saoirse are going to be helping with that. So that's when she gets paired with him. Now, Daisy, she has some struggles with, you know, being seen as not connected with her parents. Now, her parents are lovely. They're lovely, but they're actually morticians. And they also run a funeral home. And so, and her name is Daisy, and the last name is like Dunham, and her middle initial is an E. So literally her initials are DED. She was teased horribly in school. All of the siblings really were. She has a younger brother who is currently dealing with that struggle as well. And so for her to have her business, like, there's just a lot of stigma around it. And Miles is like, that's ridiculous. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to fake date, because my reputation will cancel out your reputation, and we'll get you in with the rich people, and we'll be getting you some good events. So this leads into a fake dating scenario. And yeah, it goes from there. Now, also, there's a wedding being planned in this one that is for the couple in Dear Grumpy Boss, because they haven't got married yet. So it's Elise and Weston. So Elise is Elliot's sister, right? That's from Dear Grumpy Boss. And they end up, when they find out about her, they're like, oh, you should do stuff for our wedding. And they also, there's a point where like they go to the bachelorette weekend with the couple. They're just really meeting them. Now, Weston, he's actually Miles' brother, okay? And he has a really poor view of his brother. He sees him as this like drunk fuck boy. And he was that for a lot. And he has changed in recent years, but Weston has kind of refused to see it. So he still kind of gives some offhanded comments to his brother. And this makes Daisy very defensive of him. And so, you know, we have this balance then where like he's trying to raise her reputation and she's actually kind of like proving how responsible and wonderful he is to his family. So I said I wasn't going to talk about it too much, and I already have. I love these two. This was a very slow burn between these two. It really was. It was a slow burn with them, but it was so beautiful. Julia Wolf does those so well because she spends so much time on the characters and their nuances and building the chemistry that by the time they finally do it, you're like, there was no other option. You guys have to be together. So this one also had some very emotional stuff in it. There was some dealings with mental health, some talk of suicide, not with one of the main characters, but with a side character. Also bullying, you know, there was bullying to them, and some toxic family relationships, and not Daisy's, but Miles's. So there's that. We have some little kinks. Of course, Julia loves to bring in a new kink for us, and there's a little bit of foot stuff in this one, okay? It's not the most erotic, awful thing you've ever seen, okay? But Miles likes feet, okay? I'm just going to tell you. And he thinks that when Daisy puts on pretty shoes, that it is very sexy, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of men feel that way, okay? It doesn't make it gross, doesn't make it nasty. We don't kink shame here. But it was kind of funny because Julia Wolf put a post on Threads where she's like, I have learned that people are okay with lactation kink, but you show a little ankle or a little foot and people freak out. And I just think that's funny. But, you know, I'm a person who I like to bust the kinks and all that. And the way that Julia Wolf incorporates kinks into her books, they're subtle. They work. It's not like it's just like, bam, this person has a crazy fetish, you know? It's just, it's subtle, and it's clear that he's very attracted when her little feet look so pretty in these shoes, and he's just like, oh, I just love it. What is wrong with it? There's also a scene of cock warming in here that's really hot and beautiful. You guys know how much I love that. So she was giving everything I wanted. So this was a 5-star. Of course, P.S. You're Intolerable is still my favorite. Okay, it's still my favorite. But I gave this one 5 stars. It's a 3 on the spice scale, and you know, I'm sad this series is done, but we aren't leaving Denver just yet. She does introduce us to a crew of ladies this time that will be the head of the next series that she's going to do. So I can't wait to see what she does next. Julia Wolf has my full trust and attention, and I love her. All right, moving right along. We're reaching our hour mark. I did a reread of My Darling Duke by Stacey Reed. I annotated this for Patreon. So this was a wonderful reread for sure. This one has actually a disabled character. He was injured in a fire, and so he's scarred, as well as his spine and his legs are very stiff, and he's been impotent all this time. I think it's been 5 years. I think it's been 5 years that he's been impotent. And then we have a heroine who pretends that she's his fiance to up her family's standing because they are in some trouble. And then he hears about this and he wants to meet this bold girl who had the balls to lie and say that she was his fiance. So he invites her to first he goes to town and meets her. And then he invites her to his family home because he's like, I want you to spend some time with me. Basically, he's lonely. And she's like, you're going to ruin my reputation. He's like, you already said you were engaged to me, so it'll be okay. But she starts to awaken some feelings in him, both the figurative kind and the literal physical kind that he's never been able to feel before. So this is a very, very beautiful book, and it was wonderful to revisit it. That's a 5-star read, and it's a 2 on the spice scale. All right, then I had an ALC and an ARC of Shattered Vows by P. Rain. This is the next book in the Midnight Manor series. This one is a Rapunzel retelling. This one is about Cole and Rhapsody. So if you read the first one, which was Midnight Thorns, I think was the first one, there was some hints that Cole had a heartbreak in his past, that he was actually engaged before. And at the end of that one, he had found this woman, and that's all we knew, is that he found her. And so at the beginning of this book, we have Rhapsody is actually about to get married to someone else. It's been a few years. she's going to be marrying someone else. We can tell her mother is very possessive, very controlling of her. We can see that happening, right? Some Rapunzel going on. And Cole actually steals her from her wedding. He's like, you know what? You didn't make it down the aisle to me. You ain't making it down the aisle to that guy. And he wants to destroy her because he's brokenhearted over her. So he brings her to the family home. And he decides what he wants to do is he doesn't just want to, he doesn't want to physically hurt her or anything. He wants to make her fall in love with him again and then break her heart, because that's what he's going to do. All right. Is he going to be successful at that? Doubtful. But these books aren't very long. They go pretty quick. And this one, it was really beautiful. We still have some kinkiness. We get to go to the sex club. We get to see that she might be interested in the sex club. And we get to find out some more secrets about her crazy mom and like how things have ended up the way that they did. So this one, I gave it 4 stars. There's a 3 on the spice scale. This one was narrated by Muffy Newtown and Tor Thom. It's hard to say his name, but very, very good. This one was duet narration, so highly recommend. These books are wonderful. So I gave this a 4 stars, a 3 on the spice scale. It had some voyeurism, we had the sex club, and we had some impact play. So all good things. All right. Next up, I read Hidden Empire by K.L. Mann. Now, I'd never heard of this author before, but I saw somehow her book came up on my For You page. Came up on my Instagram that this was a mafia style school, and that it had a virgin heroine, it had a surprise pregnancy, it had like insta love, like it had all these things. And I signed up for the ARC, and so I got an ARC from the author. And this book was wild, guys. This was wild. And I'm going to try not to talk about this one for too long because, man, I still have a few books to talk about here. But I was surprised by how unique this one was. So even though the story for me was a bit overcomplicated and I think she tried to do too much in this book, I know it's because she's trying to set up a series. So I give it a little leeway, but at the end of the day, I'll just tell you, I gave this one 3.5 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. But I think that people should read it because if you love mafia schools, if you love mafia romance, there's a lot of stuff to love about this. It didn't quite hit the way I wanted it to. But Hidden Empire is about Jade, and we begin this with Jade being basically like kicked out by her mom, and we know that she stabbed her mom's boyfriend, but we know that it was deserved. That's what we know. And the mother admits in this moment that Jade is actually the child of Dante Moretti, and why don't you go live with your demon father and he can have you. I hope he kills you when he gets you. Like this mom is off her fucking rocker. Okay, she's off her rocker. And the police officer who's there handling this is like, this is Dante Moretti's daughter and he doesn't know about her. Are you fucking crazy, woman? And so this officer ends up bringing her to her father. Okay. Now Dante, which we do actually get Dante's POV a couple times in the book, which I thought was good. He is a widower at this point, but he has 9 sons. Okay. He has 9 sons ranging in age from 31 to 19. And he lost his wife recently. Maybe it wasn't too recently. I don't know when it was, but he finds out about this daughter and he is overjoyed. He's very disturbed when he finds out the type of life she's been having and the fact that he didn't know about her. He's very upset by that. But he absolutely embraces her, and so do her 9 brothers. They all love her. They're happy to have a little sister. And they introduce her to the mafia world, and they introduce her to the fact that they go to a mafia school. So 3 of her older brothers and are still students at this mafia college, and one of them is actually a teacher. I think he's the weapons expert or one of the things there. And after she spent some time with them, like she doesn't just right away have to go to this school or anything by any means, but by the time it's time to go, she's actually pretty excited. So, like of other mafia schools we've read, right? Both like Kingmakers and like the Saints Academy, they're from all different mafia groups and they're all sent there. And so very quickly after arriving, she meets Dimitri, who is a Bratva heir, and he's actually there with him and his younger brother, Ivan, and she falls head over heels for Dimitri immediately. And this is where the insta love happens. She is obsessed with him, knows nothing about him, doesn't know whether he's an enemy or a foe to her family, and is completely obsessed with him. And guess what? Dimitri is obsessed right back. So there's no tension at all in their relationship at all. They're completely in love. It's just a little bit of a forbidden relationship until they can figure out how to tell their parents, right? And I did say in the beginning, there is a surprise pregnancy with this too. But again, there's just no tension in the last part of this at all. And there is a little bit of a conflict that pops up right at the end, but it was not built well. It just showed up because it's like, oh, we need to finish this off with some drama in the third act. And so that's what fell flat for me. What I loved, the world we were introduced to, all the characters that we met, even though, yes, just think of how many characters I named. There are 9 brothers, her dad, Dimitri and Ivan, and then a couple more characters at the school. There are a shit ton of characters we get introduced to in this. It was so much. I mean, I love that she has 9 older brothers, but I also think there could have been half as many. Like, there could have been half as many brothers. And even if this author wants to write stories for a good chunk of them, like, you could still write a lot. So it was just too much. Like, there was too many slices. It was too many slices. But I was intrigued. I would read more from this author. I hope that with another book, it would be a bit more focused. You know, we wouldn't be so on everyone. But, I mean, Dimitri and Jade, they were very cute. But this read really like, I don't know, it almost read like a YA mafia if it didn't have open door sex, if it wasn't as sexy as it was. And it did have some, like, she has PTSD, she had an abusive parent, there was some of that going on, but this almost read like YA for just how naive she is and how just like, yeah. But I still liked it, and I'd like you to give it a try if some of those things sound interesting. Just go in with like tempered expectations. But, you know, I want people to read it because I want this author to write more. I don't want her to be discouraged because there was a lot of good stuff in there. There really was. All right, then I read a quick little novella called One Last Summer by Piper Rain. I had an audiobook arc of this one, even though this one's already out. You can snag this. This is a prequel to Plain Daisy Ranch, and this one is about where their names are. So I don't remember their names. See, that's why I write everything down. How did I not put their names in there? That's supposed to be a mandatory square. Oopsie. All right, well, I don't have their names, but this one takes place the last summer before our hero goes away to school. He has 2 brothers and his dad. They run the family ranch, but he's a football star. He's going to be going to play college ball and then hopefully pro ball. And she needs to stay back with the family. And so this is their last day together, basically. Them going to the swimming hole with their friends, going to a party with his family, and then him promising that he's never going to forget her. And that is all that this is. It's only 51 pages. It was a fine setup. So, I mean, like, I rated this book, but it really is just literally like a long prologue to the other book, which I have started, but I had to pause it because of the Mafia romance readathon, but I'll be finishing it very soon because this one comes out on Tuesday. So this was good. I mean, I gave it 4 stars, but like, it's just the prologue basically, right? And then we have some Mafia to talk about, right? So we're getting to the end of this video, but we still have a few to go. So I read Savage King by Deborah Garland. I got an ALC of this one. Now, almost this whole series is already out, so you can read these. It's just the audiobooks that are coming out. So I got an ALC from the author agency. This is an author I've never read before, but I have seen her books around. And when I saw that the audiobook was going to be available, I was like, sign me up. So this one was narrated by Lexi Evans and Tyler Griffin, and this is a mafia arranged marriage. It's an age gap. It's Italian mafia and the Irish mafia, and you can tell I read this one for the readathon, and it covered 6 different or 8, actually I think 8 different spots on my bingo board. Like, it was a great one to pick first. It was also the audiobook, all of that. So this one is about Kieran and Issa, and Kieran, he is a, you know, how do I say it? Well, he's Irish mafia. He is a sad grumpy man. He lost a fiance a few years ago, so he doesn't believe he can love again. He likes very rough, erotic sex. He likes to go to the sex club, but he's looking for a sweet, pretty virgin to have his babies, right? And he has an old school friend who they're not really friends anymore, but in the Italian mob, there's this guy named Gabe, and he happens to have a beautiful daughter. Now, Gabe's wife was actually just murdered in an explosion that exploded their house, and she died. And there's this beautiful daughter who she's 18, and he wants to marry her. Now, by marrying her, he's literally buying her. He's going to be giving Gabe $10 million for his daughter. And he's doing this not only because he needs a wife and he needs heirs, but he knows that giving Gabe this money will fund his war against the Bratva. So he's trying to be a shit stirrer. He wants the Italians and the Bratva to go at each other, but he does also want a wife, and he thinks Isa is beautiful and he wants her. Okay. But she's only going to be his wife. He's still going to go fuck people at the club because he has really rough sexual desires, and the pretty virgin would just never be able to handle it. Can you tell that I'm a little bit judgy of him? Yes, I am. I'm a little bit judgy of him. But, Isa is strong, and she has a backbone that I appreciate. And, you know, she actually wanted to run away with a guy she was going to marry. She wasn't in love with him, but her mother had taught her, find a rich businessman. You're going to need someone wealthy who your father will approve of you marrying, but also I don't want you to be controlled the way that I was. So I want you to find a rich man, but find one that you have a say with, right? So she was planning to do that. Her mother has died. She's mourning her mother. And she's planning to run away with someone to marry. But instead she gets given to Kiernan, and she has no chance to get away because she finds this out and she's taken the same day. So she's not happy about this. However, she's like, well, I'm going to pretend to be compliant, get him to trust me, and then I can run away later. So again, she's being smart, and I appreciate this about her. But also she does think he's attractive, and she's like, well, if I end up having to have a wedding night with him, if I have to like do this, like I can enjoy it, but my plan is still to leave. The only thing is he now thinks she's too delicate for him to fuck, and so now he gets all nervous about that and everything, which is crazy to me because I'm like, whatever. And on their wedding night, he's like, well, I'm gonna go to the sex club because I have too much anger all built up and I would wreck you. And so he's literally like gonna go to the sex club instead of be with her. And he goes there, but he says no, of course, good for you. But then he comes home and he doesn't fuck her either, because again, he's afraid that his desires will be too much for her. Can I tell you how much I hate that? I hate that. But again, she's very strong, and when she decides she is going to stay with him, she's like, well, I'm going to make this marriage what I want it to be then, because I'm going to do those things. So I appreciated that about her. She wasn't this wilting flower. Even though a lot of choices are taken away from her, she makes the choices she can make, and I appreciate that in a mafia princess, because you do what you've got to do. So this is book 1 in the Astoria Royal series, and the way that things played out, you will have to check out for yourself. I did enjoy the audiobook. I did end up giving it a 4-star. I did round it up because it was an ALC, but I gave it 4 stars. It was a 4 on the spice scale. There was impact play. There was some anal sex. There was period sex. Gotta appreciate it. There was the death of a parent. There was an abusive parent, and there was some sexual assault. So all of those things fit in there as well. But I would read more in the series. All right, then there was Brutal Vows by Darcy McQueen. I'll talk about this one more in the vlog. Yes, there will be a mafia vlog that is for everyone going up. But Darcy McQueen actually sent me the first 3 books in this series. I think it was last year sometime, and I just never got around to them, and I felt bad about it, but she sent me these beautifully signed books. And I was like, I am reading it this time. And I'm so glad I did. This was a bit more lighthearted than it might look by the cover. And it actually starts at a ranch. So there is this ranch that is a like boarding stable and a place for traveling people to bring their horses to. And this was started by an ex-mafia guy, but he's also undercover there too, because there's some people who want to kill him for the way that he like left the mafia and everything. So it's just him and one of his guys who like run this, and he pretends to be just a farrier at the place or whatever. And then we have our heroine. Oh, so his name is Ty and her name is Tessa. And Tessa is on the run with her horse. I won't explain all the details of why she's on the run, but she's a mafia princess on the run. And when she gets to this place, both her and Ty are using fake names. Like, I'll just tell you, they're using fake names to start. And they can both tell that they're keeping secrets. And so she tells him, like, you don't ask me about me, and I won't ask you about you. I just need a safe place for me and my horse. This is the end of the road for me. I don't know where else to go, but I need a place for it. And he's like, okay, you don't ask me questions. I won't ask you questions. I respect that. But very soon they keep being drawn together, and they do start slowly sharing their pasts and who they're running from. So I enjoyed this. This was not super long. It was very sweet. This is absolutely insta-love between these two. They say I love you, I think, by page like 100 in this book. But it was sweet. I love the characters. There's some side characters that just had me in stitches in here. His like friend, who's also from the mafia, who works there with him, is wild. I just love him so much. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars, and it's a 2 on the spice scale. And then the last one that I read this week is Hug It Out by Davidson King. This one is book 2 in the Haven Heart series. And this one isn't super connected to Snow. The way that this one is connected is that Teddy is friends with Snow, but Teddy doesn't even fully know like who Snow's husband is and like all that. This is an MM1, by the way. But Teddy, he has this company where he's a professional hugger and TLC provider. And I love that. I have heard of professional huggers before, which I think is so cool. And he actually started this business because of his grandmother. When his grandmother was sick, she's a cancer survivor, he saw just how much she needed companionship and needed love. And so that's something he has continued to do, both for like older people who are in grief, who just need good hugs. And I love that idea so much. And he also will like go to the NICU and like hold abandoned babies, and like, oh, I just love it. Teddy is a gem. Okay, he's a gem. And the reason why he connects with Rorden is that Rorden's sister thinks that he's kind of lonely. He recently had something bad happen with work, which she doesn't know what his work is. She thinks he worked for the government. Really, he's a mafia assassin. He gets like, well, the organization he works for is assassins. He gets hired out by the mafia sometimes. So this connected tangentially to the mafia, right? And his sister hires Teddy for a whole month to be like a live-in companion and to give comfort to Rorden. And now Rorden is not really interested in doing this, but his sister kind of threatens him. And so he agrees. And he's like, I'm not into the hugging. I don't want the hugging. But you can be my friend, I guess, for some time. And so Teddy's like, cool, let's do it. And Teddy goes about just loving on him in whatever ways that he can. So the only thing is again, Teddy doesn't know the man that he's gotten involved with and doesn't know how dangerous it is that he be around him. So there are some risks there. Now, for me, I thought this book was too long. I know, I shouldn't say that, but I feel like some things were drug out with this. I didn't really care about the side plot in this one. I loved when we were getting Teddy and Rorden together, but I just didn't like feel it as much as I wanted to, and I was sad about that. I really loved Snow, and so I will read more in this series for sure. I'm interested in some of the other characters, but I loved what his job was. I love what he did. I thought he was so cute, and it was just okay. I liked Snow a lot better than this one. But I gave this one 3.5 stars, and it was a 2.5 on the spice scale, and it was still fun. Like, I think Davidson King writes very sweet mafia MM books, so definitely check those out if you want to. I will have a list and links for all of the books I talked about in this video. If you're interested in supporting this channel, you can do something as little as like this video, leave a comment of what your favorite book was in the last couple of weeks, give me a recommendation, and again, if you want to treat yourself, I do have 30% off in my Etsy shop this weekend. Don't miss out. It's the biggest sale that I do. So stock yourself up on some goodies there. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time.